Some of the most important work God does in our lives doesn't feel like blessing in the moment. It often comes through delay, disappointment, and discomfort. Scripture teaches that what we often resist may actually be how God is training our hearts. Good day, family. This is video number 10 in our series, The Heart. Today's lesson is titled, How God Trains the Heart Through Discipline. As we move deeper into the formation section of this series, we need to address a word that often makes believers uncomfortable. That's the word discipline. Not because discipline is unbiblical, but because it is often misunderstood. Many people associate discipline only with punishment. And Scripture presents something very different. God uses discipline not to reject his people, but to train their hearts. Discipline is a sign of sonship. Consider the writer of Hebrews. He addresses this very directly there in Hebrews 12 and verse 6. Reminding us that the Lord disciplines the one he loves. That statement reframes discipline entirely. Discipline is not evidence of God's absence. It is evidence of his care. If God were indifferent, he will leave us as we are. Discipline reveals that God is invested in who we are becoming. Discipline trains and not just corrects. Scripture presents discipline as training, not merely correction. Hebrews 12 and verse 11, we're told that discipline is painful for the moment, but later yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness. Notice with me the progression. Discipline works internally before it produces anything visible. God is not merely trying to stop behavior, he's shaping discernment, humility, and endurance within the heart. If that is the case, why does discipline feel confusing? Discipline often feels confusing because it does not always arrive with explanation. Sometimes discipline comes through delay. Sometimes discipline comes through disappointment. Sometimes discipline comes through seasons where progress feels slower than expected. However, Scripture reminds us that God's discipline is purposeful. It trains us to trust him, not just obey him. A heart that has been disciplined learns to lean on God rather than rush ahead of him. Discipline produces endurance. Discipline strengthens the heart over time. A disciplined heart becomes more patient under pressure, less reactive to circumstances, and more anchored in God's promises. Remember Proverbs chapter 3, verses 11 and 12? Because their scripture urges believers not to despise the Lord's discipline or grow weary of it. Why? Because discipline is how God prepares his people to endure what obedience will require. Here's your core truth. God uses discipline to train the heart for faithfulness, not to punish it into submission. And that difference matters deeply. By way of application, let me invite you to reflect on this question. When I experience difficulty, do I assume God is displeased? Or do I consider that he may be training my heart? Discipline invites trust. It asks us to believe that God's shaping work, even uncomfortable, is producing something good within us. As we continue this series, we'll look at how guarding the heart becomes a daily responsibility, especially in seasons where discipline has already done its work. And this is what it means to be formed to fight. Thank you so much for spending time with me.